What affects tearing in birth? Okay, moms, so here's the deal. There are a couple things that really can have a positive or a negative effect on increasing or decreasing your chances for tearing during birth. One of those is having too tight of a pelvis and a pelvic floor. Contrary to popular belief with our pelvic floor, so many women think their pelvic floor is actually weak, and you're doing too many Kegels, which are actually causing too much restriction and potentially just imbalances in your pelvis, your pelvic floor, and your pelvis. Something else that can contribute to too tight of a pelvis and a pelvic floor is constantly tucking your pelvis. This is really common in bar classes and certain fitness classes where you're constantly taught to tuck your pelvis, tuck, 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 squeeze, 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 right? If we're doing that all the time, ladies, then guess what? We are potentially causing too much restriction, not just for our pelvic floor, but also in our pelvis. And if we are too tight, then guess what? When it comes to trying to vaginally birth a baby, then it's harder for our pelvis and our pelvic floor to easily open up. So one thing that you can do to help improve this is to spend more time releasing and relaxing, not just your pelvic floor, but your pelvis. Okay, the second thing that can contribute is pushing baby out too fast. Okay, so some of you might be like, oh, but Erica, I pushed a baby out, my first out in like a couple pushes or 10 minutes or whatever. That's fine, right? My oldest, I pushed out in 10 minutes, but I look back and also wish I had known better and known that I could have taken more time because baby was not under any stress, or there was no emergency to have to get baby out in 10 minutes. Sometimes there are, and it's great to be prepared if you do need to get baby out fast. But let's talk about this, right? I think so many times we think, oh gosh, we got to just push baby out as fast as possible, right? And that's not the reality. Is that we actually want to give our body, our pelvis, our perineum time to release and relax and open up to allow for baby to come out more easily and not so forceful. It's the idea of, think of it like this, ladies. It's like, let's learn to work with our body and not be so forceful, and like force our body to do things, okay? So when we're thinking about, we've fully dilated to 10, it's time to push baby out, right? Allowing those contractions to help open and soften the perineum and your pelvis and allowing everything to open up while you're effectively pushing baby. And I see time and time again with my clients that, 30 minutes is kind of the sweet spot where it's enough time for your body to open up to really work to minimize tearing and even prevent tearing. I even see first-time moms not tear at all, and it's so amazing, and it can be such a game changer for your early postpartum recovery. And even if you tear, like there's so many degrees of tearing, right? If we can minimize tearing, then guess what? That also can have such a positive outcome on your recovery early postpartum, okay? So thinking about that, right? Allowing our body to work, with us. And again, if you end up pushing baby out in 3 pushes or 10 minutes or really fast, like that's just maybe what's supposed to happen, and that's fine. And maybe you don't have any tearing, or maybe you have minimal tearing, right? But here's what I try to minimize as much as possible is moms having to push for hours. It's so much stress on you, it's so much stress on baby, and it's relationship to tearing, maybe just because we get more inflammation going on in the pelvis because there's just so much, right? There's so much stress going on down there. Okay, something else that I see that can positively or negatively affect tearing during birth is, are we pushing without breathing, with holding our breath, right? I know that's taught a lot. I still feel like it's taught, and that's okay. Some of you may have been taught that, and maybe that's what like resonates with you and you want to roll with it. That's fine. I want to present to you my perspective on it, okay? So if you think about this, like if you're standing right now, or if you're not standing, then do try this. If you go to hold your breath and you try to kind of exert some energy, what happens? You likely feel pressure downward in your pelvic floor. You feel stressed. You might feel like your pelvic floor wanting to kind of grip and grab a little bit. And here's the thing is that that's actually what I find happens, right? If we are holding our breath, we're being more forceful with our body. And when we are instead, you learn to exhale with a push. We're using that breath to assist our body. That exhale can actually help our pelvic floor to soften and our pelvis to soften, to relax, to release. And that's really what we need to be doing, right? Kind of back to point number 1. We need to allow softening, okay, and opening of our pelvis and our pelvic floor. And if we're holding our breath all the time, that can cause just tightness and restriction in our pelvic floor. And we want to minimize that as much as possible. One other thing I like to mention when it comes to the topic of tearing during birth is episiotomy. Something I'm just really going to tell you, ladies. I encourage you, please look them up if you don't know what that is. Ask your physician about them. Ask your physician's position. Like, hey, are you big on doing episiotomies, or do you use it as an absolute last resort? So more and more today, we're seeing doctors getting farther and farther away from using them and only use them as a last resort. And that is something I encourage a lot, because episiotomies really can just lead to so much scarring in your perineum, and especially when they're done unnecessarily. So take it from personal experience. I had an unnecessary one that was not needed. If I knew what I knew today, I would have been able to prevent it. I would have had that conversation ahead of time with my doctor, but you don't know what you don't know. So that's why I want to make sure that you know when you've heard about episiotomies, and if you don't know what they are, please go and look them up when you finish watching this video, and then talk to your physician about them. So ladies, I just want to tell you that there's so much knowledge and prep work that you can do prior to pregnancy, during pregnancy. Even if you're like, but Erica, I'm due like tomorrow or today, like, is there still time for me to learn? Absolutely. It's never too late, because even a little nugget here or there could really help set you up for just potentially an easier birth, right? And that's what I love helping my moms with. I've been working with moms for almost 20 years now. I'm a mom myself to 3, so I've been through, personally 3 vaginal births. I know what it's like. I've had 3 very different experiences, learned a lot from them. And I teach moms all the time, and we're talking about birth and preparing for birth. We do it through movement, through breath work, through mindfulness. I like to encapsulate all of it, and working a lot and teaching you how to effectively strengthen, right? So we're not too tight, because there's so much amazing work we can do while pregnant that's not only preparing our body for birth itself, but also just motherhood, right? Because there's so much physicalness that we have to being a mom, running around after kiddos, and just there's so much, right? So I want to help better prepare you so that you don't have to suffer with the aches and pains, with the incontinence, with the pelvic organ prolapse, with so many things that I do work with moms on, down the road, that they didn't even know that there were things that they could do while they were pregnant, before they were pregnant, or even early postpartum, that there's so much that you can do to really help prepare your body so that you can feel better, right? Because at the end of the day, when you feel better, you have less aches and pains, you're not peeing your pants, those types of things. And even if you are, you're at the right place, because I'm here to help you. But life can just be so much easier. And life's hard with little kids, right? It can be anyway. It can be exhausting. It can be tiring. It's just like go, 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 right? So when you are physically and energetically better prepared, and your postpartum recovery is that much easier, like that just really helps to set you up for just a better quality life and more ease into motherhood. Or maybe this is your 3rd or 5th or 10th baby, that you're welcoming into your family. It doesn't matter. I worked with moms, quite an array, and it always just excites me and lights me up when I get to hear incredible birth stories. And just know they are not always going to go as planned. And so something I'll just leave you all with is having multiple plans for, if you're going and having a vaginal birth, like what is what you want, and visualize that, and then going from there. So think through all those things. I like to talk all my clients through those. So ladies, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you're interested to learn more and work with me, you can check out my KnockedUp Fitness prenatal and postnatal program. Just go to knockedupfitness.com, or of course reach out if you have any